There are places on Earth where people mysteriously disappear for no apparent reason. One such location is the Valley of the Headless in Canada, which rivals the Bermuda Triangle in its ominous reputation. It all began in the late 19th century. Driven by the gold rush, throngs of prospectors began arriving in this region. They were searching for gold, but found only death. Some vanished without a trace, while others were discovered years later as headless corpses. Despite the fear of literally losing their heads, people still venture into this valley in search of gold. In the late 19th century, a rumor spread among New World prospectors about a valley in northern Canada, rich in gold nuggets. Hundreds of crazed fortune seekers from all over the world rushed there in pursuit of quick and seemingly easy wealth. Naturally, none of them were concerned by the fact that the indigenous population avoided the valley at all costs. The first officially recorded victims of the Valley of the Headless were a group of 6 men. In 1898, these daring adventurers set out in search of a new Klondike, ignoring warnings from the indigenous people. They have tales of enormous animals such as the mammoth, and spiders as large as full-sized grizzly bear, and long worms that are supposed to be alive today, and nobody can save them from these animals but their doctors. Some of the Indians will tell you they have seen these animals. They believed that their weapons could protect them from any danger. They were wrong. They disappeared without a trace. Years later, their headless skeletons were found clutching their weapons, with gold pans lying nearby. Following another tragedy in 1905, this grim place earned the name Valley of the Headless. Here's what happened. 2 brothers, the McLeod brothers, along with a friend, ventured into the valley in search of gold. 3 years later, hunters discovered their skeletons. The belongings and weapons of the unlucky prospectors were found intact, but their heads were missing. The police were unable to explain the events, and no one had a plausible theory. Meanwhile, people continued to lose their heads, literally. In 1921, John O'Brien met his end in the valley. The following year, Angus Hall was killed. In August 1932, the headless body of Phil Powers was discovered. In 1936, William Epler and Joseph Mulholland disappeared, and in 1940, Homburg, who had been hunting in the area with friends, vanished. When rescuers were sent to find the hunters, they came across a campsite. Evidence suggested the group had lost their sanity, unable to find food or leave the cursed place. One of them reportedly blew himself up with dynamite, while the others starved to death. Incidentally, insanity seems to be a common occurrence in this valley. In 1945, Savarda disappeared, followed in 1949 by a police officer named Shebach. The next year, 2 more prospectors were lost. For a long time, no one attempted to study these mysterious events. The first research expedition, led by Blake Mackenzie, was sent to the valley in 1962. Tragically, the researchers met the same fate. Helicopters searched for the missing scientists for 2 months until their bodies were discovered. Of course, headless. In 1965, the valley claimed another group consisting of 2 Swedes and a German. The 3 men vanished without a trace. A helicopter team of 6 was sent to search for them, but 2 of the rescuers also disappeared. Time passed, but the mystery remained unsolved. In 1980, journalists became interested in the valley. The German magazine Der Spiegel funded a new expedition. 3 former U.S. Army paratroopers, experienced in survival under the harshest conditions, committed to spending a month in the valley and returning alive. However, on the 3rd day, the expedition sent a radio message reporting that an impenetrable fog was enveloping the valley. Shortly after, communication was lost. None of them ever returned. A rescue team dispatched to aid the paratroopers also vanished without a trace. Human curiosity about the unknown is unrelenting. Undeterred by the failures of his predecessors, American anomaly expert Hank Mortimer organized a new expedition to the Valley of the Headless. His group consisted of 6 people, and every possible contingency was planned for. All vehicles and even the living trailer were made of armored metal. The team was equipped with state-of-the-art technology and communication devices. But all the preparations were in vain. On the very first evening, the team's radio operator, who remained in constant contact with the group, heard terrifying screams interspersed with the strange words of the expedition's radio man. "The void is emerging from the rock. It's horrifying." Rescue teams immediately flew to the scene. It took them just 30 minutes to reach the camp, but by then, there were no scientists, no equipment, and no traces of the group's presence. A few days later, the headless corpse of one team member was found. In the years that followed, people continued to disappear in the valley, and the events always followed the same chilling pattern: the disappearance, then the discovery of headless corpses. The most recent known disappearance occurred in 1990, involving 3 young university students who arrogantly ventured into the valley to uncover its secrets. Of course, this is not the full list of the Valley of the Headless's victims. It's worth noting that every one of them was a strong, well-trained, and resilient individual capable of defending themselves if necessary. What could have overpowered them? Who was decapitating the bodies, and why? What purpose could these severed heads serve? There are no answers to these questions. However, one peculiarity stands out. Almost all the victims, except the scientists, were prospectors. Perhaps the mystery lies in this detail. In 1972, an expedition led by Captain Fiannes, accompanied by soldiers and British television operators, was organized. Before setting out, Captain Fiannes received a strange letter from an Englishman, which read, "One thing stands out in the descriptions of these mysterious cases. All the victims ventured into the valley in search of gold, and they found death. You will meet the same fate if you lose sight of your mission and engage in gold prospecting." The expedition resisted the lure of gold and successfully returned, unharmed and intact. There are still no official explanations for the events in the Valley of the Headless, but several theories have emerged over time. The local population believes the area is ruled by the Sasquatch, also known as the Yeti. Indigenous people claim that written accounts exist from the time gold prospectors began arriving in the valley, reporting sightings of a strange creature resembling a giant, hairy man. Hunters have repeatedly found its tracks. Interestingly, Canada has the highest number of reported Sasquatch encounters. In 1973 alone, around 50 cases were documented. While these reports could be dismissed as fantasy, eyewitnesses describe remarkably similar details. The creature is said to have a foul odor, stands at an enormous height, and weighs approximately 660 pounds. A particularly intriguing account comes from a group of mountaineers who visited the valley in 2000. They claim to have seen the Sasquatch twice. According to them, the creature was covered in black fur and walked on 2 disproportionately short legs. The daytime sighting revealed that its face lacked fur, appearing quite human-like. However, no photographs were taken as the witnesses were paralyzed by fear and the creature fled quickly. The second encounter occurred at their camp during the night. Strangely, none of the group members could sleep that night, all gripped by an inexplicable sense of fear and unease. By morning, most of them were unwell, with elevated blood pressure, rapid heart rates, and a complete loss of appetite, highly unusual for trained athletes. Still, it's uncertain whether the Sasquatch is responsible for the deaths of the prospectors. This remains purely speculative. Another theory seems more plausible: that a gang of criminals operated in the valley, robbing and killing gold miners, decapitating the bodies to make identification impossible. However, the police claim no outsiders have ever been observed in the area. A similar theory suggests that an unknown indigenous tribe resides in the valley and punishes those who encroach on the gold of their ancestors. Law enforcement suspects that disputes among prospectors themselves might have led to the violence, with the blame conveniently placed on indigenous people. But this theory also falters. Some missing expeditions were heavily armed and well-equipped. How could indigenous tribes or ordinary prospectors overpower such groups? Finally, there's the most outlandish hypothesis. The valley contains a mysterious tunnel that serves as a gateway to another world, inhabited by dark entities. These entities are believed to abduct people and later return their headless bodies for reasons unknown. Today, few dare to visit this dreadful place, which is now monitored only by satellites. Locals summarize the situation with grim humor. To visit the Valley of the Headless, you'd have to be truly headless yourself. Thank you for watching. What do you think is the reason behind the dozens or even hundreds of deaths in this place? Could the Yeti exist in this area? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.